Hello, barbecue enthusiasts, and happy Easter. It is Easter Sunday, 2019, April 21st, pocked, of course, by the sad news from Sri Lanka. Nevertheless, you can probably guess what we're having for Easter dinner tonight. If you guessed anything but barbecue, you would be incorrect. What you're looking at here is a Yoder Frontiersman with an insulated firebox. I had not been using this pit very much, not because I don't like it, but because I have a couple other pits that are more convenient to use. But used this pit recently for a cook and had gotten very used to the flavor profile coming off my other pits. This one seemed at the time a lot different to me. So I thought there might be room for a video like this, comparing an insulated firebox to an uninsulated firebox. Ostensibly, the advantages of an insulated firebox are better fuel economy, better heat retention, particularly in a very cold climate or inclement weather. As you can see here, we've still got a lot of snow on the ground, but it's not particularly cold. In fact, I just had the first mosquito of the season land on my arm, so it's about 50 degrees here right now. So despite the wintry appearance, it is more spring-like conditions. So we just had a lot of snow this year. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Better heat retention, better temperature control. I'd even read when I was doing some research on whether I wanted an insulated firebox or not, some guys discussing safety concerns for pets, kids, grandkids, that kind of thing. The perception was that the firebox doesn't get as hot on an insulated cooker. I can tell you that's not true. If you're thinking about getting one for that reason, don't worry about it. The firebox gets plenty hot to cause injuries, so you're better off spending the money on fencing to keep the kids and critters away from the firebox than you are to get the insulated firebox for that purpose. But again, I'm getting off on a tangent. So those are some of the advantages purportedly to having an insulated firebox. One disadvantage I had seen, or was alluded to at least in the research I did, was that an insulated firebox can be too efficient and therefore not impart as much smoky flavor or the right kind of flavors you want on your food. So but I went ahead and took the risk and went with this firebox anyway. So anyway, what we're going to do today is a direct comparison. I've got another, the reason I hauled this pit to this location, as you can see, it's on a dump trailer. So I hauled this pit to this location so I could do a side-by-side comparison with another pit that I've selected because of its size and configuration. They're the most evenly matched, but for the difference in fireboxes, obviously. So the other pit is a Horizon Marshal 30. These pits share in common a 30-inch in diameter cook chamber. This one has a cook chamber that's about 6 feet long. The other, I believe, is about 5 feet. So there's about a 1 foot difference there, but both horizontal offsets and roughly the same cooking area. The major differences between the two pits, apart from that, for comparison purposes, this pit has 2 doors. And this pit, a Horizon Marshal 30, has a single door. And albeit round, and also an uninsulated firebox, but the main consideration here is the uninsulated firebox as compared to the insulated on the other pit. Now, as for the advantages to the insulated firebox that I mentioned earlier, I'll just comment on those briefly. This is strictly my opinion. The fuel savings is negligible. If you're buying this thinking you're going to save a lot of money on buying firewood and that sort of thing, you're probably not. I find that this pit gets fed not much less frequently than the other pits. I might go 45 to 50 minutes on this, where it's 40 to 45 on most of my other pits. So you're not saving a whole lot there. So unless you live in an area where you can't collect your own firewood, or a face cord costs $1,000 or something like that, I wouldn't worry about it for a fuel savings. As for the ability to maintain temperature, heat retention, that sort of thing in cold or inclement conditions, you just build a little larger fire in another pit and you're not going to have any problem. It's all going to boil down to your fire management and your familiarity with your pit. So again, I'm not sure the insulated firebox is worth it. All the other matters, as I said, the safety factor, the cooler firebox, that sort of thing is nonsense. So I really honestly don't notice that big of a difference with this firebox as opposed to any of my others. The one thing that should be head and shoulders above any other consideration is the quality of the product you're getting off your pit. And this is where I think we may have a bit of a difference here. I'm not going to say what comes off of this is any better or worse, and that's why we're doing kind of a side-by-side comparison today. So, but I was struck by the difference in the flavor profile when we took product off of this pit, not having used it in a while. So I'm going to get these pits fired up here pretty quick. It's about time to get the ribs on. I'm doing back ribs today, 6 racks. Why 6? Well, because they come 3 to a package from Walmart, and 2 racks of ribs on one pit and 1 rack on another didn't seem like a fair comparison. And besides, I love ribs, and ribs are kind of the iconic and quintessential barbecue food. So I might also, because fire management on these 2 pits is fairly straightforward, try to kill 3 birds with 1 stone and try to get 3 videos out of this today. The comparison between the product that comes off the 2 fireboxes, or the firebox comparison, and then fire management. I've done fire management videos on a couple of other pits, one because it's a very popular brand and the other because it's a little problematic to operate. So, but these pits, again, are fairly straightforward to run, and really a fire management video for that reason is not necessary. But because it's easy on these, I might try to get that in. On the other hand, that's a lot of balls in the air, and I'm not very good at juggling. Ah. Ooh. See what I mean? One other thing I ought to mention, the only thing I'm going to do differently on this cook today that I wouldn't normally do, and this applies to the other pit, because of the heat management system and the way it's configured on this pit, I can't put the water pan underneath the cooking grate, otherwise it would interfere with the operation of this. So my other pit is not configured that way. I can put the water pan underneath the grate, but for purposes of leveling the playing field today, I'm just going to go ahead and put the water pan on top of the cooking grate on both pits. Apart from that, I'm going to exercise best practices, whatever it takes to get the best product off the pit. So that means everything from fire management to spritzing to wrapping the ribs, moving around if I need to, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to do that lockstep and in parallel with the 2 pits while I'm doing this cook today. Is it a single cook on 2 pits or 2 cooks on 2 pits? I'll let you decide. Okay, got that one lit up. We'll let these 2 pits come up to temperature and get some ribs on. They've already been seasoned. They're just chilling in the fridge right now. So I've also got some chicken quarters I'm going to put on a little later today. They've been brining for about 36 hours. I want to make it clear that this is not a brand by brand comparison. This isn't Yoder versus Horizons. This is strictly insulated versus uninsulated firebox. So I've done reviews on both of these pits in detail, ad nauseum in detail. And I'll put a link to the playlist that contains those reviews in the description below. I've tried to keep the reviews as objective and dispassionate as possible for anybody who's interested in purchasing any of these pits or trying to decide what kind of pit they're looking for and wants more information on them. So I know when I was doing research on most of my pits, there was very little information available, some in forums and that sort of thing, some reviews, but not a whole lot. So that's the whole purpose of this. But by its very nature, this review today is going to be subjective. At the end of the day, when we're sampling the product, it's going to be based on our individual tastes. So just bear that in mind. But I think that's about it. As I say, we'll let these come up to temperature and get some product on and give you a snapshot a few times through the day as to how the cook is progressing. But until we start tasting ribs tonight, there's not much here. Okay, it's just about noon 30. Pits are up to temperature. Got the ribs on. Just put them on. Running some real nice thin blue smoke on this pit. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it before. I normally put the water pan under the cooking grate on this pit just to level the playing field today. I put it on top of the grate. That's the only thing I'm going to do differently in this cook. Whether the water pan does a whole lot, I don't really know. Despite appearances, this is a relatively arid climate, so I think the relative humidity today is around 30%. Let's run up front. Okay, back at the pit with the insulated firebox. Again, I just put the product on just before I loaded the other pit. Both came up to temperature about the same time. So I've got the ribs just about centered in both pits. Again, the cook chamber on this one is about 6 feet long, whereas the other is only about 5 feet. But you've got the double door deal. This is a little inconvenient, but and this pit does have some zones in it. It cooks fairly evenly, but not as evenly as the other pits. So I kind of wanted to place the ribs in the middle to ensure that they're getting the most even cooking temperature available in the pits. So, but you can see we're running some nice thin blue smoke on this one too. This pit will very often run virtually clear. The smoke is almost invisible. So I just stoked the fire on that, so I've got some fresh splits in there. That's why we're seeing just a little bluer smoke than this one normally produces. But another difference between the two pits that I think I failed to mention: this one is crafted from 3/16 inch steel, the other from 3/8 inch steel. So this one's a little lighter metal, but again, insulated firebox. Okay, so I just loaded some chicken on both pits, about an hour into the ribs so far. Need to give those another spritz here. I've already spritzed them once. Yeah, don't give me crap about putting chicken higher than other product. It's not over it. Kind of like my flagpole. Our neighbors gave us a hard time about that, since the American flag wasn't the flying from the highest point on the pole. I won't go into details about it, but it's flying from the place of honor on that one, and it's okay to put chicken on the top rack as long as it's not dripping on anything else. Okay, so we're back at the uninsulated pit. Same deal, chicken just went on about an hour in. So things are pretty much on autopilot at this point. I'll be wrapping the ribs, and well, when they get some good color on them, it'll probably be a couple more hours. So, okay, a little update. The ribs have been on for about 3 hours now. Time to stoke that fire. See how the ribs are looking. They're looking pretty darn good. I think it's probably about time to wrap those. Chicken's starting to look pretty good too. Let's go look at the other cooker and see how those ribs are coming along. Yep, about time to stoke that firebox as well. A little warm there, and it has been all day. About 250 there, but those are looking good. Chicken's looking pretty good there too. Yeah, those are definitely ready to wrap. So we'll do that. Let that coal bed die down just a little bit, so I added a couple of little splits on there to make sure it kept going. Oops. Over there. So just got these ribs wrapped. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I've got the wrapping marked with a U for uninsulated, just to help avoid any confusion when the time comes to make a judgment on these. So, but wow, you know those little blackened drippings that run off the end of each bone? When I was wrapping those, of course I was breaking those off and eating them. Oh my God, was that good. I am looking forward to tonight. So I just got back up here, and this was running a little cloudy, so I've opened everything back up again just to get the splits burning cleanly. I just fed this fire before, I think before I wrapped the ribs on the back cooker. Anyway, I recently fed the fire, so getting these going again. This pit's giving me a little bit of trouble today. This is actually the first time this year I've used either one of these pits. And I hadn't used this one since Thanksgiving, and that whole cook went pretty flawlessly as far as fire management. I've had to tinker with it a little bit today, so nothing serious. But as you can see, these are wrapped. I'm not sure if you can see it's marked with an I for insulated, so we again can keep these straight. And chicken's coming along nicely. Okay, so I have something of a crisis brewing. My beloved chili beer I've had a hard time getting for a few years now, and I've had to order it a case or two at a time when I do get it for the last couple, 3 years. And I can now no longer order it. Hey, just heard a hummingbird. Did you hear the hummer?
I did. I heard him.
Hard to believe. Ain't no flowers here. So I called the distributors on the chili beer website, and they don't even act like they've even heard of it before. So if anybody has a source for this, let me know, because I'm getting desperate. I'm on my last few bottles. So all of the chicken is off the pit, and we did a little quality assurance taste testing of a couple of pieces off of each pit. And what did you think?
Not knowing which pit was which, I liked the one on the left side.
And I kind of like the one on the right side. Why did you like the one on the left?
Texture. They both had good flavor, but texture.
The chicken on the pit with the insulated firebox finished up early. That is, it reached the desired internal temperature, which was about 185 degrees. And the chicken on this pit, in fact, I just pulled the last of it off. Took quite a bit longer to get up to the internal temperature, so I think it might have dried out a little bit. But in my opinion, I didn't think, and of course we're talking about the difference between two different pieces of meat, so one might have been naturally a little tougher than the other. I don't know.
That could be.
But I thought the one that came off the pit with the uninsulated firebox had slightly, they were both good.
But a smokier flavor.
Yeah, but I thought it had a slightly richer flavor than the...
It did.
Oh, that's not what you said before.
I said they both had good flavor. I just liked the texture of the other better.
Oh, okay. Well, but you didn't say anything about the...
I didn't think about the... I didn't think about it.
So the ribs are starting to get a little floppy on both pits, a little more so on the pit with the insulated firebox. I'm going to start probing those pretty soon, and hopefully they'll be done pretty quick.
You need to aim that there.
There?
Yeah.
There?
Anywhere but that. Yeah.
Or me. Gonna break the camera. Okay, so here we are. Unwrap. First, a rack of ribs that was insulated. Sticking just a little bit to the paper there. Come at it from the other side here. See if we can peel that off. Well, there's no point in filming all this. Okay, but again, that's the insulated side. And now the uninsulated. Here's the U. For uninsulated, that one did not stick. That's a good thing. quite a bark on it. Okay, again. Insulated, uninsulated. Yeah, made a mess of that. Bone. Okay. Doesn't look like much of a smoke ring on that, does it? My hands are greasy.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. You want to grab one?
Sure.
Here, I'll take this. Which is which again?
I think this one's the insulated.
It is. I was kidding.
I like the uninsulated.
Yeah, it's really curious. These were cooked at the same temperature. And this got a little overdone after I wrapped them, which has happened before. You get that real crispy bark on it. And these are the uninsulated ribs. Sorry, I've got to bump the screen so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, there's really no comparison. That's hot. Now both of these are falling off the bone tender, which is the way I like it. I know it's supposed to have some tug or whatever, but I'd prefer the bone just slips right out.
Flavor?
Because I'm not
Uninsulated.
cooking in competition. But yeah, as far as the texture of both of these, they're both real tender. They're both coming right off the bone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was not my imagination. When we cooked Thanksgiving dinner, because we had the turkey, and we had the ribs. What else did we cook?
I've slept since then.
Yeah, me too. Fortunately, I filmed it so I could go back and find out. But it was the ribs. We had the turkey that night, and then we had ribs a day or two later. And when we had the ribs, I'm like, wow, this doesn't taste like the ribs that we usually, that come off of this, or the Lone Star Grills, or even the Yoder Durango over here. And the one thing I can think of is that the insulated firebox has something to do with that.
Apparently it does.
And I noted that when we did the review on the, or when I did the review on the Frontiersman. It doesn't smell like the other smokers. You know, you walk past this one over here, that one, or this one, when they're just sitting there, and it smells like barbecue.
Barbecue.
The Frontiersman does not. I can't even get the screen to turn on now because
Covered in grease.
I'm a little greasy here.
I wouldn't have known it except for that he talked me into the side by side.
I told you, if we did a side-by-side comparison. So when I sampled the chicken, I thought maybe I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Because I could detect a slight difference in the flavor, but not much. But it's striking. Here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so conclusion. Again, this is not a brand versus brand. This was simply about the fireboxes and the quality of smoke that they produce. And I kind of gave you my opinion of the, and I apologize if I'm slurring my speech. I've had about, how many beers now?
3.
A chili beer and at least 3 tall boys. So any fuel efficiency or savings is negligible. I don't think you're going to notice a big difference. Cooking in inclement weather, again, not an issue. I've never had any problem with cooking in the rain, high winds, snow, that sort of thing, whether it's an insulated firebox or an uninsulated firebox. Now, granted, we don't get Arctic temperatures around here, but it all boils down to the quality of the product that comes off of the cooker. And I think that for just a slight difference in flavor, I mean, I can't even say it's necessarily slight. It's definitely a better, richer, smokier flavor coming off the uninsulated firebox than the insulated firebox. Based on this, I would not buy another cooker with an insulated firebox. That's what it boils down to. What would you say? Okay. I think that's about it. Hope we don't get a bear tonight. Again, a lot of snow on the ground, but I have a feeling the bears are coming into their torpor. I had a mosquito on my arm earlier today. We heard a hummingbird today. So spring has sprung. The snow just doesn't know it yet.
Except for the river.
Except for the river in the yard. So that's about it, folks. I hope this was useful. If you like the content of this video, whatever you do, don't like or subscribe. That's not why I'm doing this. If anybody got anything out of this, makes me happy. So let's go pig out on some ribs.
Yummy.
Auf Wiedersehen. Bye. Wait, it didn't turn off. Which one do I need to hit? Adios.